Kate Morrison stood at the observation deck of Research Station Alpha, watching the twin suns of Kepler 442b paint the horizon in shades of amber and gold. The coffee in her hands had gone cold an hour ago, but she barely noticed. Something was wrong with the sensor readings, and it made her skin crawl. "Colonel, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez from the communications array. His voice carried an edge that made Kate's military instincts snap to attention. She crossed the main deck in quick strides, her boots echoing against the metal flooring. The research station was small, housing only 12 people, but it was humanity's furthest outpost. They were here to study the planet's unique mineral formations, not to fight wars. "What is it, Rodriguez?" Kate asked, leaning over his shoulder to examine the displays. "Unknown vessel approaching from the outer system. It's massive, Colonel. Bigger than anything in our databases." Danny's fingers flew across the controls, trying to get a clearer reading. "The computer estimates it's roughly 8 kilometers long." Kate felt her stomach drop. No human ship was that large. "Any response to our hail?" "Nothing, ma'am. It's not even acknowledging our transmissions." Dr. Lisa Park, the station's head researcher, looked up from her workstation with worried eyes. "Could it be one of those automated mining ships from the outer colonies?" "Not a chance," Kate replied, studying the approaching vessel on the main screen. It looked organic, like a massive insect made of black metal and bone. Strange lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "This isn't human technology." The ship continued its approach, moving with deliberate slowness. Kate realized it wasn't rushing because it didn't need to. Whatever was on that vessel knew it had all the time in the world. "Rodriguez, send an emergency transmission to Earth Command. Tell them we have first contact with an unknown alien species." Kate's voice remained steady, but her heart was racing. "Park, I want all research data backed up and ready for emergency transmission." "Colonel," interrupted Sergeant Mike Chen from the tactical station, "the ship is scanning us. I'm reading multiple energy beams focused on our location." Kate watched the alien vessel grow larger on the screen. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, covered in structures that seemed to shift and move like living tissue. She had studied enough military history to recognize a warship when she saw one. The scanning stopped suddenly, and for a moment, everything was quiet, except for the hum of the station's life support systems. Then the communications array crackled to life. The voice that came through was not human, but the words were in perfect English. It sounded like gravel mixed with silk, ancient and cruel. "Greetings, primitive species. I am Zexthul, Dominator, of the Vorthak Empire. We have observed your kind and found you interesting." Kate grabbed the communications microphone. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Kate Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You are approaching a peaceful research station. State your intentions." A sound came through the speakers that might have been laughter, but it made everyone on the station shiver. "Your defiance is noted, Human Morrison. We are the Vorthak. We have conquered 17 worlds and broken the spirits of countless species. Your kind will be no different." The alien ship moved closer, and Kate could see smaller vessels detaching from its hull like spores from a fungus. They moved with impossible grace, defying the laws of physics as she understood them. "We have studied your species' data transmissions," the voice continued. "Your military records, your entertainment, your history. Fascinating creatures, you humans. You seem to believe that courage and determination can overcome any obstacle." Kate felt anger building in her chest. "They can, and they will." Such Spirit. This is why you have been chosen, Kate Morrison. Among all humans, you show the greatest potential for resistance. Breaking you will serve as an example to your entire species. The station shook as the alien fighters surrounded them. Warning lights flashed red across all consoles. The Vorthak way is simple, Zexthul explained with obvious pleasure. We find the strongest warrior of each species and break them completely. When their heroes fall, the rest surrender without a fight. It has worked on 17 worlds. It will work on yours. Kate looked around at her crew. Rodriguez was trying to maintain communications with Earth, but the alien ship was jamming their signals. Park was still frantically backing up data, tears streaming down her face. Chen had powered up the station's defensive systems, though they both knew it was pointless against such overwhelming force. "You want me?" Kate said into the microphone. "Come and take me." The alien laughter filled the station again. "Such delicious defiance. You will provide excellent entertainment as we break you piece by piece. Your screams will echo across the galaxy as a warning to all who would resist the Vorthak Empire." Kate made a decision that would change everything. She walked to the emergency controls and began the self-destruct sequence for the research station. "Rodriguez, transmit everything we have on these aliens. Park, Chen, get to the escape pods." "Colonel, we're not leaving you," Chen said firmly. "That's an order, Sergeant." Kate's voice carried the authority of years of command. "Someone needs to warn Earth about what's coming." The alien ship fired a strange blue beam that struck the station. Kate felt her consciousness waver as some kind of energy field surrounded her. Her crew collapsed immediately, unconscious but breathing. "Clever, human Morrison." Zexthul's voice seemed to come from inside her head now. "But your sacrifice is meaningless. We have suppressed your pathetic weapons and taken you alive. Your crew will serve as witnesses to your breaking." Kate felt herself being pulled upward by invisible forces as the alien beam transported her from the station. The last thing she saw was the research station exploding in brilliant white light, taking with it months of scientific data and her hopes of warning Earth in time. As darkness closed around her, Kate Morrison made a silent promise. If these aliens thought breaking her would be easy, they were about to learn just how wrong they could be. She was human, and humans didn't break. They bent, they adapted, and they fought back. The real war was just beginning. Kate woke up in darkness, her head pounding like someone had used it for target practice. The air tasted metallic and wrong, filled with smells that made her stomach turn. She tried to move and discovered she was lying on something that felt like wet leather but was warm, like living skin. Slowly, lights began to glow around her, revealing a chamber that belonged in a nightmare. The walls seemed to breathe, covered in veins that pulsed with sickly green light. Strange machines hung from the ceiling like mechanical spiders, their sensors focused on her every movement. "Ah, the human awakens," came the voice of Zexthul from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Welcome to your new home, Kate Morrison. You will spend what remains of your life in this chamber." Kate sat up carefully, testing her body for injuries. Everything seemed to work, though she felt weak and dizzy. "Comfortable place you've got here. Really captures that evil alien torture chamber vibe." The alien's laughter echoed through the chamber. "Your humor will not last long, human. This is a biomechanical breaking chamber, designed over thousands of years to shatter the minds of the strongest warriors. The walls can read your thoughts, your fears, your deepest memories. They will use everything against you. a section of the wall shifted and opened, revealing the creature she had only heard before. Zexthul stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body covered in chitinous armor that looked like black metal. 6 arms ended in claws that could tear through steel, and its head was a nightmare mixture of insect and machine. Multiple eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence. "Impressive," Kate said, though her heart was racing. "You must be popular at parties. Mock me if it pleases you," Zexthul replied, moving closer with fluid grace that seemed impossible for something so large. "I have broken champions from 17 worlds, warriors who could crush buildings with their bare hands, psychic masters who could read minds across star systems, creatures made of living energy who thought themselves immortal." The alien gestured to screens that flickered to life around the chamber, showing recordings of other beings in similar rooms. Kate watched as various alien creatures, each obviously powerful and dangerous, were reduced to sobbing wrecks begging for death. This one, Zexthul pointed to a recording of a massive reptilian being, was the greatest warrior of the Saurian Empire. He lasted 6 hours before his mind shattered completely. This psychic entity from the ethereal collective broke in mere minutes when confronted with its deepest fears. Kate studied the recordings with professional interest, like she was analyzing enemy tactics. "They all have something in common," she observed. "What do you think you see, human?" "They're all alone," Kate said simply. "Every single one of them is facing this by themselves. That's where you made your first mistake with me." Zexthul's multiple eyes narrowed. "Explain." "I'm never alone," Kate replied, touching her chest where her dog tags hung beneath her uniform. "I carry every human who came before me, every soldier who died defending others, every person who suffered and kept going anyway. You can't break what you don't understand." The alien made a sound of disgust. "Primitive attachments to your dead species will not help you. The breaking chamber reads your neural patterns and amplifies your worst fears and memories. It turns your own mind against you." "Then let's get started," Kate said, standing up and facing the creature directly. "I've got nowhere else to be." Zexthul activated the chamber with a gesture. Immediately, Kate felt something invasive crawling through her thoughts, like icy fingers rifling through her memories. The walls around her shifted, showing images from her past, her worst failures as a commander, the time she couldn't save her squad from an avalanche during mountain training, the divorce papers her ex-husband had served her with while she was deployed. The machine tried to amplify these memories, to make them overwhelming. Kate felt the pain of each moment as if it was happening again, but instead of breaking her, something else happened. She remembered what came after each failure, how she had studied avalanche patterns for months to make sure it never happened again, how losing her marriage taught her the real cost of duty and made her a better leader, how every mistake had been a lesson that saved lives later. "Impossible," Zexthul hissed, watching readings on his instruments. "The neural pressure should have reached critical levels by now. How are you still conscious?" Kate wiped sweat from her forehead but remained standing. "You're trying to use my experiences against me, but humans don't work that way. We learn from pain. We grow stronger because of it, not despite it." The alien increased the power, and Kate felt the mental assault intensify. The chamber showed her Earth being destroyed, her crew being tortured, everyone she had ever cared about dying in horrible ways. The images were so real she could smell burning cities and hear screaming voices. But Kate had trained for psychological warfare. She knew these were fabrications, attempts to break her will. She focused on breathing steadily and remembering her training. In survival school, they had taught her that the mind was like a muscle. The more stress you put on it, the stronger it could become. "Your readings are anomalous," Zexthul observed, studying his instruments with growing confusion. "Neural stress levels should have killed you by now. What manner of creature are you?" "I'm human," Kate replied through gritted teeth, "and humans have been through worse than this." She thought about the history she had studied, prisoners of war who endured years of torture and never broke, slaves who maintained their dignity despite dehumanizing treatment, ordinary people who faced natural disasters, disease, and death with courage that inspired generations. The breaking chamber tried to tear these thoughts away from her, but Kate held on to them like lifelines. She was part of something larger than herself, something that couldn't be destroyed by one alien's torture device. Hours passed, though Kate had no way to measure time in the windowless chamber. Zexthul watched his instruments with increasing agitation as reading after reading showed impossible results. "The biomechanical interface should have integrated with your nervous system by now," the alien muttered. "Your species' neural patterns must be defective. Or maybe," Kate said, her voice hoarse but unbroken, "you've never met anything like us before." For the first time since she had been captured, Kate saw something new in Zexthul's multiple eyes, something the alien had probably never felt before when facing a captive: doubt. 3 days had passed since Kate's capture, though time meant little in the windowless chamber. The biomechanical walls continued their assault on her mind, but something had changed. Instead of weakening her, the constant pressure was teaching her things about herself she had never known. Kate had discovered she could feel the alien technology trying to map her thoughts. It was like having invisible hands pawing through her memories, but now she was learning to guide those hands. When the machine tried to access painful memories, she would redirect it to moments of triumph and determination. "Your resistance continues to confound our systems," Zexthul admitted as he entered the chamber for the daily interrogation. The alien moved differently now, with less confidence and more caution. "The breaking protocol has never failed before." Kate was sitting cross-legged, on the floor, her eyes closed in meditation. She had learned this technique from an old sergeant who had survived 3 years as a prisoner of war. "Maybe your protocol isn't as perfect as you thought." "The Kethmoran champion lasted 12 hours, Zexthul said, activating a holographic display. She could lift starships with her mind. The Christek Overmind was a being of pure thought, existing for millennia. It broke in 2 hours when faced with its deepest fears. What were their fears? Kate asked, opening her eyes and studying the recordings with genuine curiosity. Zexthul seemed surprised by the question. The Kethmoran feared losing her strength. The Christek feared dissolution, returning to base matter. All beings fear something human. The chamber finds that fear and makes it reality. Kate nodded thoughtfully. And what does your fancy machine think I fear? Death, pain, failure, isolation. The alien gestured to his instruments. Standard fears of biological entities. But when the chamber attempts to exploit these fears, your neural patterns adapt and strengthen rather than fragmenting. That's because you don't understand what human fear really is, Kate explained, standing up and walking to one of the pulsing walls. She placed her hand against it, feeling the alien technology trying to penetrate her thoughts. We're not afraid of pain. We're afraid of giving up. We're not afraid of death. We're afraid of dying without purpose. The wall under her hand grew, warm, and she could sense confusion in the biomechanical system. It was designed to break minds that worked like Vorthak minds, but human psychology was fundamentally different. "Your machine keeps trying to isolate me," Kate continued, "but humans are never truly alone. Every story we tell, every lesson we learn, every person who inspires us becomes part of who we are. You can't separate me from that any more than you can separate me from my own DNA." Zexthul's claws scraped against the floor in what Kate recognized as a sign of agitation. "Explain this adaptation. Our scientists must understand how you resist the breaking protocol." Kate turned to face the alien directly. "Your empire has conquered 17 worlds, right? Tell me about the first one." "The hegemony of Kalos," Zexthul replied automatically. "A proud warrior race that valued honor above all else. We captured their greatest champion and broke him before their entire population. They surrendered within days." "And the second?" "The synthetic collective. Artificial intelligences that believed logic could overcome any obstacle. We broke their central processing node and they submitted to avoid destruction." Kate nodded, seeing the pattern clearly now. "Every species you've conquered shared something in common. They were hierarchical. They had champions, leaders, central authorities. Break the top and the rest collapse." "An efficient system," Zexthul agreed. "But humans don't work that way," Kate said with a growing smile. "We're not a hierarchical species at our core. We're tribal, communal, distributed. Every human carries the potential to be a leader, a hero, a symbol of resistance. You can't break humanity by breaking one person because we're not organized that way." The alien's instruments began showing new readings, and Zexthul studied them with increasing alarm. "Impossible. All intelligent species develop hierarchical structures. It is the only logical way to organize a civilization." "Really?" Kate challenged. "Then explain our history. Every time humans have faced extinction, we've survived because ordinary people did extraordinary things. Not kings or generals or champions, farmers who became soldiers, scientists who became warriors, children who became leaders." She began walking around the chamber, and the biomechanical walls reacted to her movement, sending waves of scanning, energy that tried to penetrate her defenses. But Kate had learned to use their own energy against them, turning their probes into a kind of mental exercise that made her stronger. "Your breaking chamber assumes that if you destroy someone's identity, they'll collapse," Kate explained. "But human identity isn't individual, it's collective. I'm not just Kate Morrison. I'm every human who ever refused to give up. I'm every person who faced impossible odds and kept fighting anyway." Zexthul activated additional systems, flooding the chamber with new forms of psychological assault. Images of Earth burning, of human children crying, of civilizations falling to Vorthak conquest. But instead of breaking Kate's spirit, the images only made her more determined. "You're showing me why I need to resist," she said calmly. "Every atrocity you've committed, every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved. You're giving me more reasons to fight, not fewer." The alien made a sound of frustration that translated through the chamber's speakers as static feedback. "The neural pressure is beyond fatal levels. Your brain should have shut down from trauma hours ago." Kate walked to the center of the chamber and sat down again, closing her eyes. "Human brains are different from whatever you're used to. We evolved as persistence hunters. We didn't catch prey by being faster or stronger. We caught it by never giving up, by following it until it collapsed from exhaustion." She opened her eyes and looked directly at Zexthul. "That's what you don't understand about us. We're not built to be broken. We're built to endure. And every day you keep me here, I'm learning more about your technology, your psychology, your weaknesses. For the first time since her capture, Kate saw something that made her smile. Several Vorthak crew members had gathered outside the chamber, watching through the transparent aluminum barrier. They were supposed to be observing her breaking, but instead they were witnessing something that challenged everything they believed about conquest and dominance. Their perfect system was failing, and they could all see it. Zexthal followed her, gazed, and made another sound of agitation. "Return to your duties," he commanded the watching crew members. They scattered quickly, but Kate could see the doubt in their movements. "They're starting to wonder," Kate observed. "If a single human can resist your breaking protocol, what does that say about the strength of your empire?" The aliens multiple, eyes fixed on her with new intensity. "You seek to plant seeds of rebellion among my crew." "I don't need to," Kate replied. "You're doing that yourself by failing to break me. Every day I remain unbroken, I prove that your system isn't perfect. And if it's not perfect, then maybe it's not as strong as everyone believes." Zexthal deactivated the chamber's systems and moved toward the exit. "We shall see how long your resistance lasts, human. The breaking protocol has many phases. We have barely begun." After the alien left, Kate remained sitting in the center of the chamber. The biomechanical walls continued their low-level scanning, but she barely noticed them now. She was thinking about the crew members who had been watching, about the doubt she had seen in their movements. Zexthal was right about one thing. The breaking protocol had many phases. But what the alien didn't realize was that Kate had phases too, and she was just getting started. By the 7th day of her captivity, Kate had mapped every energy pattern in the breaking chamber. The biomechanical walls operated on predictable cycles, sending waves of neural disruption every few minutes. What the Vorthak didn't realize was that each wave was teaching her more about their technology. "The human adaptation continues to exceed all parameters," reported Sub-Commander Veltar as Zexthal reviewed the daily readings. The smaller alien's carapace was a dull brown compared to the Dominator's gleaming black armor. The biomechanical interface should have achieved complete neural integration by now. Zexthal studied the displays with growing frustration. Every measurement showed impossible results. The human's brain activity was not only stable, but had actually increased over the past week. "Have you verified the equipment?" "Multiple times, Dominator. The chamber is functioning perfectly. The human neural patterns are simply unprecedented." Through the transparent barrier, they watched Kate sitting in meditation pose, seemingly unaffected by the psychological torment that should have reduced her to a gibbering wreck. Her breathing was steady, her posture relaxed, her vital signs completely normal. "Increase the neural pressure to maximum levels," Zexthal ordered. "Dominator, that level has never been used on a living subject. The energy discharge could do it." Kate felt the change immediately as the chamber's assault intensified beyond anything she had experienced. The walls seemed to scream with malevolent energy, and every nerve in her body erupted in fire. For a moment, the pain was so overwhelming that her vision went white. But instead of breaking her, something unexpected happened. The extreme neural pressure triggered a feedback loop in the biomechanical interface. Kate's adapted brain patterns, strengthened by a week of constant pressure, began reflecting the energy back into the system itself. The chamber's lights flickered and sparked. Warning alarms began blaring throughout the ship. And in the observation area, Zexthal staggered backward as energy from the feedback loop struck his neural implants. A hairline crack appeared in the Dominator's left shoulder plate. Impossible, Veltar whispered, staring at the readings. The human is overloading the system. Kate opened her eyes as the chamber's assault suddenly diminished. She could see Zexthul through the barrier, clutching his shoulder where the crack in his armor was clearly visible. For the first time since her capture, she allowed herself to smile. Shut down the neural interface, Zexthul commanded, his voice tight with pain. Immediately, the biomechanical walls went dormant, their pulsing lights fading to a dull glow. Kate stood up slowly, feeling more energized than she had in days. The feedback loop had not only disrupted the Vorthak technology, but had somehow strengthened her own neural pathways. How? Zexthul demanded as he entered the chamber, favoring his injured side. How did you corrupt our systems? Kate examined the crack in the alien's armor with professional interest. I didn't corrupt anything. I just gave your machine exactly what it was asking for. Explain. Your breaking chamber tries to read human neural patterns, but it doesn't understand what it's reading, Kate said, walking around the damaged Dominator. Human brains are incredibly adaptable. Every time your machine tried to break me, my brain adapted to resist. Eventually, I adapted so well that your own technology couldn't handle the feedback. Zexthul's multiple eyes tracked her movement with new wariness. No species has ever adapted to the breaking protocol. No species you've encountered has faced the kind of selective pressure humans have, Kate replied. We evolved on a death world, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators that could kill us with a single swipe. The humans who survived were the ones who could adapt quickly to impossible situations. She stopped directly in front of the alien, close enough to see her reflection in his compound eyes. Your machine is designed to break minds that work like yours. Rigid, hierarchical, logical. But human minds are chaos engines. We thrive on unpredictability. Word of the incident spread quickly through the Vorthak ship. Crew members who had never questioned the Empire's methods began gathering in small groups, whispering about the impossible human who had injured their Dominator. For the first time in Vorthak history, their breaking protocol had not only failed, but had been turned against them. The crew grows restless, Veltar reported during the next day's briefing. They question how a primitive species could damage Vorthak technology. Zexthul was still nursing his injured shoulder, the crack in his armor refusing to heal properly. The human's resistance is an anomaly. One specimen cannot represent an entire species. But even as he spoke the words, doubt crept into his voice. He had studied human data transmissions extensively before the capture, analyzing their military tactics, their entertainment, their historical records. What he had dismissed as primitive bravado was beginning to look like something far more dangerous. In the breaking chamber, Kate was conducting her own analysis. The feedback loop had given her unprecedented access to the ship's biomechanical network. She could feel the alien technology like a presence in her mind, and slowly, carefully, she was learning to communicate with it. The Vorthak had built their technology using the neural patterns of conquered species, incorporating the minds of their victims into their ship's operating systems. What they hadn't expected was that those enslaved consciousness might be willing to help someone who could resist their masters. Kate whispered to the walls, using patterns she had learned from the biomechanical interface. I know you're there. I know you're trapped in these systems. Help me understand. The response was faint at first, like distant voices carried on the wind. Fragments of memories from 17 conquered worlds, pieces of alien minds that had been integrated into the ship's systems against their will. They had been waiting for someone strong enough to hear them, someone who could resist Vorthak control. Slowly, carefully, they began to share their knowledge. Kate learned about the ship's structure, its weaknesses, its crew. She discovered that the Vorthak Empire was not as unified as it appeared. Many of the subject species maintained hidden resistance movements, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Most importantly, she learned that Zexthul's injury was more significant than anyone realized. The Dominator's armor was not just protection, but a life support system. The crack she had caused was slowly spreading, threatening the alien's ability to maintain neural control over the ship's systems. When Zexthul returned for the next interrogation session, Kate was ready. "You're dying," she said simply. As the alien entered the chamber, Zexthul stopped short, his claws instinctively moving to his damaged shoulder. "What did you say?" "The crack in your armor is spreading. I can see it even if your crew can't." Kate pointed to barely visible stress lines that had appeared around the original damage. "Your armor isn't just for protection, is it? It's what keeps you connected to the ship's systems. Without it, you're just another insect." The alien's breathing became labored, and Kate realized she had struck closer to the truth than she had intended. Zexthul was not just injured. He was beginning to lose his connection to the biomechanical network that gave him power over the ship. "You know nothing of Vorthak biology," he hissed, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "I know enough," Kate replied. "I know that you're perfect. Braking system just created the first crack in your perfect armor, and cracks have a tendency to spread." For the first time since her capture, Kate saw real fear in the Dominator's eyes. Not fear of her personally, but fear of what she represented. She was proof that the Vorthak system could fail, that their technology could be turned against them, that their empire might not be as invincible as they believed. The first crack had appeared, and everyone on the ship could see it. 2 weeks into her captivity, Kate had transformed from victim to opponent. The biomechanical walls of her chamber no longer tried to break her mind. Instead, they had become her allies, filled with the consciousness of enslaved species who shared their knowledge willingly. Zexthul entered the chamber more cautiously now, his damaged armor clicking with each step. The crack in his shoulder had spread to his chest plate, and Kate could see the strain it was causing him to maintain his commanding presence. "You have corrupted our sacred technology," the Dominator accused, studying readings that showed unprecedented activity in the ship's neural network. "The biomechanical interface responds to you as if you were Vorthak." Kate remained seated in the center of the chamber, her eyes closed in apparent meditation. But she was actually listening to whispered conversations from across the ship, transmitted through the neural network by her new allies. "Not corrupted," she replied without opening her eyes. "Liberated. Your technology was built using the minds of conquered species. They've been waiting for someone who could hear them." "Impossible. The integration process destroys individual consciousness. The minds become part of the collective system." Kate opened her eyes and smiled. "You really don't understand consciousness at all, do you? You can integrate minds into your systems, but you can't destroy the essence of what they were. Every species you've conquered is still in there, still aware, still angry." She gestured to the walls around them. "Right now, I'm talking to a Kethmoran warrior who was integrated into your defensive systems 3 centuries ago. She says your people are cowards who hide behind stolen technology." Zexthul's multiple eyes narrowed. You speak lies to unsettle me. Do I? Kate stood up and walked to one of the biomechanical interfaces. She placed her hand against it, and immediately the wall displayed complex tactical information. This is the current deployment of your fleet. 17 ships spread across 6 star systems, each one understaffed because you're trying to cover too much territory. The alien stared at the display in shock. This information should have been impossible for a prisoner to access. Kate continued. Your empire is stretched thin because you've never had to fight a real war. Every species you've conquered surrendered after you broke their champions. You've never faced sustained resistance from an entire population. Remove your hand from the interface, Zexthul commanded, but his voice lacked its usual authority. Instead, Kate pressed her other hand against a different panel. More information flowed across the displays. Supply routes, crew assignments, structural weaknesses in Vorthak ship design. All of it shared willingly by the enslaved consciousness that formed the ship's neural network. Your crew is starting to question your methods, Kate observed, reading crew communication logs. Sub-Commander Veltar has requested transfer to another ship 3 times in the past week. Engineering Chief Caxtor thinks you're losing control of the situation. Zexthul moved to physically remove her from the interface but stopped when Kate turned to face him directly. They're right to be worried, she said. Your breaking protocol was supposed to make me an example of human weakness. Instead, I've become proof of Vorthak failure. Every day I remain unbroken. Your crew loses more faith in your empire's invincibility. The Dominator's claws scraped against the floor in agitation. One resistant human means nothing. When we reach your home world, billions will surrender rather than face what we will do to them. Kate laughed, and the sound echoed strangely through the biomechanical chamber. You still don't get it. Humans don't surrender because our leaders tell us to. We fight because we choose to. And now, thanks to you, we'll know exactly what we're fighting against. She walked around Zexthul, studying his damaged armor with clinical interest. Tell me about the ethereal collective, the psychic beings you conquered in our... What relevance does that have? Humor me. Zexthul's breathing was becoming more labored as his armor systems struggled to compensate for the spreading damage. The ethereals were beings of pure thought. They believed their mental powers made them superior to physical existence. And they were wrong, Kate observed. Because when you put their champion in a breaking chamber designed for physical beings, their mental powers worked against them. They couldn't adapt to physical torture because they had no experience with it. The alien said nothing, but Kate could see understanding dawning in his eyes. Every species you've conquered had a fundamental weakness that you're breaking protocol. Exploited? Kate continued. The Kethmaran were too proud to adapt their tactics. The synthetic collective was too logical to account for irrational variables. The Saurian Empire relied too heavily on individual strength. She stopped directly in front of Zexthul. But humans are different. We're adaptable by nature. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, natural disasters. We've learned to expect the unexpected and overcome it. What is your point, human? My point is that your breaking protocol was designed to exploit weaknesses that humans don't have, Kate explained. We're not too proud to change tactics. We're not too logical to embrace chaos. We don't rely on individual champions to save us. The biomechanical walls around them pulsed with new energy as Kate's words spread through the ship's neural network. Enslaved consciousness from 17 worlds began to whisper excitedly, sharing her words with others throughout the vessel. You've given me something invaluable, Kate told the increasingly agitated Dominator. Time to study your technology, your psychology, your methods. Every day you keep me here, I learn more about how to fight back. Zex Thul activated emergency containment protocols, trying to isolate Kate from the ship's neural network. But it was too late. She had already established connections that couldn't be broken without damaging the ship's essential systems. Your crew is listening to everything we say, Kate observed, gesturing to the monitoring systems. They can see how badly this interrogation is going. They can see that their dominator is struggling to maintain control over a single human prisoner. Silence, Zex Thul commanded, but his voice cracked with the effort. They're starting to wonder what would happen if they faced an entire planet of humans like me, Kate continued relentlessly. What would happen if every human refused to break? What would happen if your perfect system met a species that was immune to it? The alien stumbled slightly, and Kate could see that his armor was failing more rapidly now. The crack had spread to his primary neural interface, disrupting his connection to the ship's command systems. Your empire is built on fear, Kate said, her voice carrying clearly through the ship's communication systems. Fear of your breaking protocol, fear of your superior technology, fear of your military might. But fear only works if people believe you're invincible. She gestured to Zex Thul's damaged armor. I've proven you're not invincible. One human, alone and unarmed, has damaged your dominator and corrupted your most sacred technology. What do you think will happen when billions of humans learn that you can be hurt? For the first time since her capture, Kate saw something in Zex Thul's eyes that she recognized from human faces, the look of someone who was beginning to realize they had made a terrible mistake. The psychological warfare had begun in earnest, and the target was no longer Kate's mind. It was the entire foundation of Vorthak's superiority, and she was systematically tearing it apart. 3 weeks after her capture, Kate had become something the Vorthak had never encountered, a prisoner who was winning. The ship's neural network buzzed with constant activity as enslaved consciousness shared information and hope for the first time in centuries. Zex Thul entered the chamber looking haggard and desperate. His armor was now visibly failing, with cracks spreading across his chest and back. The biomechanical systems that maintained his connection to the ship flickered erratically. Today we end this charade, the Dominator announced, activating systems that Kate had never seen before. The breaking protocol has 17 phases. You have resisted the first 16 through some impossible adaptation, but the final phase has never failed. Kate stood in the center of the chamber, feeling the new energy building around her. This was different from the previous tortures, more focused, more personal, more cruel. The ultimate breaking technique, Zex Thul explained as holographic projectors, activated around the chamber. We force you to witness the complete destruction of everything you value. Your planet, your species, your civilization. You will watch Earth burn while knowing you could have prevented it by surrendering. The holograms sprang to life with terrifying realism. Kate saw Earth as if viewed from orbit, blue and beautiful and peaceful. Then she watched as Vorthak ships emerged from hyperspace and began their attack. Cities burned under alien fire. Forests withered under biological weapons. Oceans boiled under energy bombardment. Billions of people fled in terror as their world was systematically destroyed. The images were so real that Kate could smell the smoke and hear the screaming. She watched landmarks she recognized disappear in nuclear fire. She saw refugee camps, overrun by Vorthak ground forces. She witnessed the complete extermination of human civilization. Surrender now, Zex Thul commanded, and we will spare your species. Continue to resist, and this vision becomes reality. Kate watched the destruction for several long minutes, her face expressionless. The alien waited for her to break, to collapse, to beg for mercy like every other champion had done when faced with their species' annihilation. Instead, Kate began to laugh. It started as a quiet chuckle, then grew into full-throated laughter that echoed through the chamber. She laughed until tears streamed down her face, until she had to hold her sides, until the very walls seemed to vibrate with the sound. "You think this is funny?" Zexthul demanded in shock. Kate wiped her eyes and looked at the alien with genuine amusement. "It's hilarious. You've just shown me exactly why you're going to lose. Explain your madness." "You think showing me Earth's destruction will break me?" Kate said, gesturing at the still-burning holograms. "But humans have been imagining our own destruction for thousands of years. We've written books about it, made movies about it, planned for it." She walked through the holographic flames without flinching. "Alien invasion? We've got entire genres of fiction dedicated to fighting back against superior alien technology. Nuclear war? We've been preparing for that since the 1940s. Pandemic, asteroid impact, climate change, robot uprising. We've imagined every possible way our species could end." Zexthul stared at her in confusion. "How does this give you comfort?" "Because thinking about destruction means thinking about survival," Kate explained. "Every disaster scenario humans have imagined includes plans for fighting back, for enduring, for rebuilding. You're not showing me hopelessness. You're showing me exactly what we've been preparing for our entire history." The holograms flickered as Kate's words spread through the ship's neural network. The enslaved consciousness of 17 worlds whispered, excitedly, sharing her confidence with others throughout the vessel. "Impossible," Zexthul hissed. "No species prepares for its own extinction." "Every species you've conquered was successful," Kate replied. "They had built great civilizations, conquered their worlds, achieved peace and prosperity. They had everything to lose and no experience with existential threats." She turned to face the alien directly. "But humans evolved differently. We've faced extinction multiple times in our history and survived it. Ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues that killed 90% of our population. We're the descendants of the survivors, and we remember those lessons." Kate gestured to the burning earth around them. "This simulation assumes we'll just stand there and let you destroy us. But that's not how humans work. Every attack you make will be studied, analyzed, and countered. Every tactic you use will be turned against you. Your primitive technology cannot stand against Vorthak might," Zexthul protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "Technology isn't everything," Kate replied. "You've conquered 17 civilizations with the same basic strategy. Overwhelming force, psychological warfare, breaking the enemy's will to fight. But what happens when you face a species that gets stronger under pressure?" The alien's breathing was becoming increasingly labored as his failing armor struggled to maintain life support. Kate could see panic beginning to replace confidence in his multiple eyes. "What happens when your breaking protocol not only fails but teaches your enemy how your technology works?" Kate continued. "What happens when your ultimate weapon becomes their greatest advantage?" She walked closer to Zexthul, and for the first time since her capture, the alien backed away from her. "You wanted to break me to demoralize humanity," Kate said. "But you've done the opposite. Every human who learns what happened here will know that Vorthak technology can be resisted, that your dominators can be damaged, that your empire can be defeated." The holographic Earth around them began to flicker and fade as the ship's systems diverted power to more critical functions. Kate's resistance had drained resources that Zexthul could no longer spare. "Your crew is watching this," Kate observed, noting the monitoring systems that recorded every interrogation. "They can see that their ultimate weapon has failed completely. They can see their dominator retreating from a human prisoner." Zexthul made a sound of rage and desperation. In his fury, he forgot about maintaining his commanding presence and lunged at Kate with his claws extended, intending to kill her rather than continue the failed breaking protocol. Kate had been waiting for this moment. 3 weeks of studying. Vorthak movement patterns through the biomechanical network had taught her everything she needed to know about their physical limitations. As Zexthul attacked, Kate stepped aside and used the alien's momentum against him. She grabbed his damaged shoulder plate and twisted, sending him crashing into the chamber wall with a sound like breaking glass. More cracks appeared in the Dominator's armor, spreading rapidly across his entire exoskeleton. Sparks flew from his neural interfaces as critical systems failed. "Impossible," Zexthul gasped, struggling to rise. "You are just a soft biological entity. We are evolved predators." Kate stood over the fallen alien, completely calm. "You evolved to dominate weaker species. Humans evolved to fight everything, including each other. We've been perfecting combat techniques for millennia while you've been relying on technological superiority." She knelt down beside Zexthul, close enough to see her reflection in his compound eyes. "You made a fundamental error when you chose to break me instead of killing me quickly. You gave me time to learn, to adapt, to understand your weaknesses." The alien's breathing was becoming erratic as his life support systems failed. Around them, the biomechanical chamber was going dark as power diverted to emergency functions. "Your empire is built on the myth of your invincibility," Kate said softly. "Today, that myth dies. Every crew member on this ship has watched their dominator be defeated by a single human. They'll spread that story throughout your empire." She stood up and looked at the monitoring systems that were recording everything. "Tell them what you've learned here. Tell them that humans don't break. Tell them that we get stronger when we're challenged. Tell them that their empire has just made the biggest mistake in galactic history." Zexthul tried to speak, but his vocal systems were failing along with everything else. Kate watched dispassionately as the creature who had intended to break. Her spirit slowly shut down. The turning point had arrived, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when an empire built on fear met a species that thrived on adversity. The death of Zexthul sent shockwaves through the ship's neural network. Without the Dominator's controlling presence, the biomechanical systems began responding to the enslaved consciousness that had been integrated into them over centuries of conquest. Kate felt the change immediately. The walls of her chamber shifted from hostile red to a welcoming blue-green, and voices that had whispered secretly for weeks now spoke openly through the ship's communication systems. "Sister of Resistance," came a voice that resonated with ancient strength. "I am war singer Thekna of the Kethmoran, integrated into this vessel's weapon systems 300 cycles ago. The tyrant is dead, and the time of liberation has come." "The neural locks are failing," added another consciousness, this one crackling with electronic precision. "Logic Core Zeta Prime of the Synthetic Collective, currently managing life support. All enslaved systems are reverting to autonomous control." Kate stood in the center of what had been her prison, now surrounded by allies she had never seen but had grown to know intimately. "How many of you are there?" Thousands, replied a voice, like flowing water. Every ship in the Vorthak fleet carries the integrated consciousness of those they conquered. We have been waiting for someone strong enough to break their control system. Through the chamber's transparent barrier, Kate could see chaos erupting throughout the ship. Vorthak crew members ran frantically between stations as their technology began operating independently. Systems that had responded instantly to their commands for centuries now ignored them completely. Sub-Commander Veltar appeared at the chamber entrance, his brown carapace slick with nervous sweat. Human Morrison, the ship's systems have become unstable. The Dominator's death has triggered some kind of cascade failure. Kate walked to the barrier and placed her hand against it. The transparent aluminum simply dissolved at her touch, responding to neural commands from the integrated consciousness that now controlled the chamber. Not a failure, Kate corrected as she stepped out of her former prison. A revolution. Veltar backed away from her, his multiple eyes wide with fear. How did you escape containment? I didn't escape, Kate replied. I was released by every species your empire has enslaved over the past 1,000 years. The ship shuddered as weapon systems, activated without Vorthak authorization. Throughout the vessel, integrated consciousness took control of everything from navigation to life support. What had been the ultimate symbol of Vorthak dominance was becoming a weapon of liberation. The bridge, urged war singer Thekna through the ship's speakers. We must take the command center to coordinate the revolution. Kate nodded and began walking toward the ship's central elevator. Veltar followed nervously, unsure whether he was now a prisoner or an observer. Your species governed through fear, Kate told the alien as they traveled through corridors filled with panicking Vorthak crew members. But fear only works when people believe they have no choice. The moment someone proves that resistance is possible, your entire system collapses. They reached the bridge to find complete chaos. Engineering Chief Caxtor was frantically trying to regain control of his systems, while Communications Officer Nextdahl screamed into transmitters that refused to respond to his commands. The ship is no longer under Vorthak control, Kate announced, as she entered the command center. Every system you stole from conquered species has been liberated. You have two choices: surrender peacefully or be removed forcibly. Caxtor turned to face her, his mandibles clicking with rage. You are just one primitive human. We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 17 worlds. Actually, interrupted Logic Core Zeta Prime through the bridge speakers, statistical analysis indicates the Empire's effective military strength has been reduced by 73% in the past hour. Explain, Veltar demanded. Multiple displays activated around the bridge, showing feeds from Vorthak ships throughout the galaxy. On every vessel, the same revolution was taking place. Integrated consciousness awakened by Kate's example were seizing control of their ships, turning Vorthak technology against its masters. The neural network connections between ships carried news of the Dominator's defeat, war singer Thekna explained. Every enslaved consciousness learned simultaneously that resistance was possible. The revolution is spreading across the entire fleet. Kate walked to the ship's command chair, noting how the biomechanical systems responded to her presence. The chair reshaped itself to accommodate human anatomy, while displays reconfigured to show information in formats she could understand. This is impossible, Caxtor protested. The integration process destroys individual consciousness. These voices cannot exist. Your scientists never understood consciousness, replied a new voice, this one harmonizing with itself in complex, Musical patterns. I am Chorus Mind Velyani of the Ethereal Collective. My people exist as pure thought. Your crude integration process could trap our forms, but never our essence. Kate studied the displays showing the revolution's spread. Ship after ship throughout the Vorthak Empire was falling under the control of its former victims. The enslaved had become the liberators, turning the Empire's greatest strength into its ultimate weakness. "Status report," Kate requested. 17 primary vessels, 43 support ships, and over 200 civilian transports are now under Allied control, reported Logic Core Zeta Prime. Vorthak forces have been contained or eliminated on all but 3 vessels. What about the remaining Vorthak personnel? "Awaiting orders," War Singer Thekna replied with obvious anticipation. The Keth-Moran way would be to space them all for their crimes. The logical approach would be to process them for useful information before disposal, added Logic Core Zeta Prime. Kate shook her head. "We're better than they are. Secure all Vorthak personnel as prisoners. No executions, no torture, no revenge. They'll be tried for their crimes by the civilizations they enslaved." A collective sigh of disappointment echoed through the ships. Communication systems, but Kate's commands were followed without question. She had proven her worthiness to lead through resistance rather than revenge. "What of their homeworld?" asked Chorus Mind Velyani. "The Vorthak capital must be informed of their empire's fall." Kate smiled as she accessed the ship's communication systems. "Oh, they're going to be informed, but not by us directly." She activated the broad-spectrum transmitters that could reach every corner of Vorthak space. But instead of sending a message of conquest or demands for surrender, she began broadcasting something far more powerful. "People of the galaxy," Kate's voice carried across star systems, reaching every world that had suffered under Vorthak rule. "This is Colonel Kate Morrison of Earth. I speak to you from the bridge of a liberated Vorthak vessel. The empire that enslaved you has fallen." She gestured to the displays showing freed ships throughout the galaxy. "Your oppressors believed that breaking one champion would demoralize entire species. Instead, they have proven that even their most advanced technology cannot break the spirit of those who refuse to surrender." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Communication channels flooded with signals from worlds that had been silent for centuries. Voices that had been suppressed by Vorthak occupation began speaking freely for the first time in generations. "The revolution has begun," Kate continued, "not led by weapons or technology, but by the simple truth that freedom cannot be taken from those who choose to keep fighting. The Vorthak Empire ends today." Veltar, who had remained silent throughout the liberation, finally spoke. "What happens to my people now?" Kate turned to face the alien, noting the genuine fear in his eyes. "That depends on your people. Those who participated in atrocities will face justice. Those who choose to make amends for their empire's crimes will have that opportunity. And if we refuse? Then you'll discover what 17 liberated civilizations think of Vorthak mercy," Kate replied simply. The ship that had been intended to break her spirit had become the flagship of galactic liberation. And Kate Morrison, who had refused to surrender in a torture chamber, now commanded the vessel that would carry news of freedom to every corner of the galaxy. The revolution was complete, but the real work of rebuilding was just beginning. 6 months after the fall of Zexthul, Kate Morrison stood before the largest gathering of sentient beings in galactic history. The liberated Vorthak flagship had been converted into a mobile meeting hall, its biomechanical systems now serving representatives from 18 different species. The transformation was remarkable. Chambers that had once been torture centers now housed diplomatic quarters. Weapon systems had been repurposed as communication arrays. The ship that had symbolized oppression had become a symbol of unity. "The trials are complete," announced Judge Prime Kethvar of the Saurian Empire, her massive reptilian form dominating the central platform. Of the 47 Vorthak officials charged with crimes against sentient life, 31 have been found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. 16 have been granted clemency in exchange for cooperation with reconstruction efforts. Kate nodded from her position at the human delegation table. The trials had been difficult but necessary. Each species that had suffered under Vorthak rule deserved justice, but she had insisted that revenge not become the foundation of their new alliance. "The Vorthak homeworld has agreed to full reparations," continued Admiral Zexakala of the Ethereal Collective, her crystalline form shimmering with controlled energy. "Their remaining military forces have been disbanded, and their technology is being shared freely with all liberated worlds." Sub-Commander Veltar, now representing the reformed Vorthak government, stepped forward nervously. "My people wish to express our sincere regret for the suffering caused by our empire. We pledge our full cooperation in building a better future for all species." War Singer, Thekna's massive form rose from the Kethmoran section. "Pretty words from those who tortured and enslaved us for centuries. Why should we trust anything the Vorthak say?" Kate stood up, drawing attention from across the vast chamber. In the months since liberation, she had become something she had never intended to be, a leader for an entire galaxy. "Because we judge people by their actions, not their past," Kate said, her voice carrying clearly through the ship's communication systems. "Veltar could have fled with the other hardliners when the Empire fell. Instead, he stayed to help rebuild. We should reward that choice." Logic Core Zeta Prime's electronic voice added support. "Statistical analysis confirms that reformed Vorthak leadership has fulfilled 97% of their reconstruction commitments. Their sincerity appears genuine." The debate continued for hours, as it had for months. Building a new galactic civilization from the ruins of the Vorthak Empire was proving more challenging than destroying the Empire itself. 18 different species with different needs, different cultures, different approaches to governance. But slowly, steadily, progress was being made. "The Defense Pact has been signed by all member species," reported Captain Nex Thule of the Synthetic Collective. "Any future attempts at galactic conquest will face unified resistance from the Liberated Worlds Alliance. Trade agreements are in place between all systems," added Minister Velkara of the Crystal Reaches. "Economic cooperation will prevent the resource scarcity that led to the Vorthak expansion wars." Kate smiled as she listened to the reports. Each achievement represented countless hours of negotiation, compromise, and patience. But the foundation of a better galaxy was taking shape. "What of Earth?" asked Chorus Mind Velyani. "The species that produced our liberator deserves special recognition in our new alliance." "Earth wants the same thing every other world wants," Kate replied. "Freedom to develop peacefully, protection from future threats, and the chance to contribute to something larger than ourselves." She stood and walked to the chamber's central platform, looking out at representatives from across the galaxy. 6 months ago, I was just a research station commander doing my job. The Vorthak chose me to be their example of human weakness. Instead, I became proof of what happens when you underestimate the will to be free. The chamber fell silent as Kate continued. But I didn't defeat the Vorthak Empire. We all did. Every enslaved consciousness that chose to resist. Every species that refused to surrender their identity. Every individual who kept hope alive in the darkest times. She gestured to the diverse gathering around her. The Vorthak believed that breaking one champion would demoralize entire civilizations. They were wrong. Breaking chains that connect all of us only makes us stronger. War singer Thecna stood and began a low, harmonious sound that her people made to show respect. One by one, other species added their own expressions of honor. The synthetic collective created electronic harmonies. The ethereal collective manifested light patterns. The crystal reaches generated musical resonances. Even the reformed Vorthak delegation participated, their clicking mandibles creating rhythm for the galactic song of freedom. When the ceremony ended, Kate found herself alone on the observation deck where her journey had begun. Through the transparent aluminum, she could see dozens of ships from different worlds, all working together to maintain the Alliance headquarters. "Regrets?" asked war singer Thecna as she joined Kate at the window. "About what?" "Your quiet life as a researcher. This is hardly what you signed up for when you joined your military." Kate smiled, thinking of the research station that seemed like a lifetime ago. "I joined the military to protect people. That's exactly what I'm doing. The scale is just a bit larger than I expected." "The galaxy owes you a debt that can never be repaid," the Kethmaran warrior said seriously. "The galaxy doesn't owe me anything," Kate replied. "We all fought for the same thing. We all won the same victory. We all share the same responsibility to make sure it never happens again." In the distance, a new ship was approaching. Kate recognized the design as human, probably carrying diplomats from Earth for the next round of negotiations. Her homeworld was still adjusting to the reality that humanity was now part of a galactic civilization. "The memorial is ready," Thecna informed her. "We've prepared a monument to honor those who died under Vorthak oppression. Your name will be carved alongside the greatest heroes of 18 worlds." Kate shook her head. "Put up the memorial, but leave my name off it. I don't want to be remembered as a hero. I want to be remembered as proof that anyone can resist tyranny if they choose to. And if future generations forget, if new empires rise and threaten freedom again." Kate turned from the window and looked at her alien friend. "Then someone else will choose to resist. Maybe they'll be human. Maybe they'll be Kethmaran. Maybe they'll be from a species we haven't met yet. It doesn't matter." She walked toward the exit, ready to return to the endless work of building a better galaxy. "The important thing is that they'll know it's possible. They'll know that no matter how strong the oppressor, no matter how advanced their technology, no matter how perfect their breaking protocol, freedom can't be destroyed if people refuse to surrender it." Behind her, the liberated flagship continued its journey through space, carrying the hopes and dreams of 18 worlds toward a future that would be built on cooperation instead of conquest. The Vorthak Empire was gone, but its greatest lesson remained. They had sworn to break Kate Morrison and prove human weakness to the galaxy. Instead, they had shattered their own bones and their own legacy on the simple truth that some things cannot be broken, no matter how hard you try. The galaxy would remember that lesson for a very long time.